Hey everyone, Michael Linowitz here, part of the BD department here at Delesio Law Group, and thank you for joining us for another Facebook Live. I have Paul Altman here, a real, genuine Australian and an attorney in Australia, and one of our greatest case managers here at Delesio. So thank you for having us. Thank you for being with us, Paul.
Thank you, Michael. Pleasure.
Happy to have you. And today we're going to go over a PERM. And this is not the kind you get at a hair salon, so you can take a shower right after. And to my understanding, PERM is an acronym which stands for...
I actually had to look it up myself.
Okay.
I don't even know. People just refer to it that way. It's called the Program Electronic Review Management System, I suppose.
And what is it? What is a PERM? How does this help someone who's trying to come and work in the States?
Yeah, most people have probably heard of it, didn't know what it stood for either. But essentially, if you're looking to apply for a green card in the US based on employment, there are various routes that you can take. There are certain fast tracks you can take if you're at a certain level or you have certain qualifications. If you don't meet that criteria, the US government basically requires your sponsoring employer to first go out and test the US labor market to
see
ensure...
if there's anyone out there that...
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're talking exclusively about seeing if there are any qualified US workers for that particular role. So the PERM is essentially that good faith test of the US labor market.
And what kind of industries do you usually find people using PERM as a route, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, it's not exclusive to any one industry. So, you can sponsor somebody for a role basically in any industry, in any kind of position. It's a prospective position that you're offering the person basically at the time that their green card will be issued. But we generally see them in all the traditional usual professions in the tech industry, in the entertainment industry, across any kind of, corporate role, even lower level roles, domestic workers and those kinds of things as well. So it's pretty broad.
Interesting. And what kind of requirements would someone be running into if applying for a PERM or something like that?
Yeah, sure. So as part of the good faith test of the US labor market, the idea is that you've got to go out and recruit for the job. So the initial idea is you have to set the basic minimal education, experience, and any particular skills that you would normally require for that job. And it's important to note at this point that this is about the job as opposed to the individual that's ultimately going to be sponsored. Obviously, that individual ultimately has to qualify for the job. But in terms of setting the parameters for the job, the requirements that you're testing in the US labor market, they must be the minimal and normal requirements for the job.
Right. Okay, so let's say hypothetically, a client was on an O1 or something like that, an H1B.
Yep.
Does that affect the chances of being accepted through the PERM application?
No, not at all. They can actually be done quite separately. In fact, you can even commence, because a PERM application is for a prospective position, you can actually do a PERM application before somebody even, for example, gets an O1 or gets an H1B.
You can do it simultaneously.
Yeah, exactly. And one doesn't really affect the other. There are some nuances that need to be taken into account, obviously, to make sure that there's no inconsistency between, say, the O1 job, H1B job versus the PERM job. But those are the kind of things we work out on a case-by-case basis.
And are there any limitations on certain countries that can apply for PERMs, or is it open to everyone who isn't in a travel ban?
No, it's a good question. It is open to everybody, but there are certain countries that are held back in terms of not the PERM application itself. The green card process is basically multi-staged. So in the case of the PERM, it's a 3-stage process. Basically, you go through the labour market test, the PERM, stage 1. Stage 2 is then the employer's offer of permanent sponsorship of the person. Then the third stage is the actual individual's green card application. Some nationals of some countries are held back from stage 3 because the government considers that particular country has already kind of got enough of their nationals in the US, so effectively there is a delay then in getting to that third stage. But in terms of the PERM itself, that can happen at any time for any person. You just may be held back at a later stage to get that precious green card. Very
interesting. All right, well, do you have any last closing comments to give to the world about PERM to help?
Yeah, cool. I mean, just generally, it's definitely advisable. Of course, we're going to say this, but it's always advisable to get legal advice in starting a PERM. It is It can be a complex process. It's certainly the strategy and setting the requirements of the labour market test. It's important to speak to an attorney about those. There are prevailing wage requirements which need to be taken into account, which we can kind of navigate. And of course, the recruitment process is then very detailed. There are certain ads that have to run certain days and have to say certain things. So it's important to kind of have that immigration advice to make sure everything runs smoothly.
All right.
And that's what we're here for, Mark.
Oh, thank you so much. This was great.
You're welcome, mate.
And yeah, if you any more questions, please feel free to call us here at D'Alessio Law Group. We'd love to help out. And thank you for tuning in. Bye now.